is not actually about the poem. Now, is it? Hi, this is Dale Byron with Heartwork Podcast, where we do work with the written word, often in the form of poetry. But I am very clear as we do this series on how to have poetry come more alive, how to be more inspired, how to be more clear, how to heal and express our grieving at those times when we need to do that. I'm quite certain that it's not the poem itself, it is that feeling that we get when we experience a poem the more fully. I guess we could say it that way. And so this series is about how to read poetry so that we experience it more deeply. Again, those things that we seek, the insight, the healing, the inspiration, all of those things come in greater quantity when we read a poem well. Now, in the first week, of course, we talked about speaking poems alive, and we were just making the very simple point that often, if you will read a poem out loud, that in itself, even if you're by yourself, read the poem out loud, that will give it a different feel, a more powerful feeling. That we have to speak the poems alive, essentially, is the point we were making. Now, this week, we're going to talk about the advice. The principle is pause for power. Very simple, very simple. It is the idea that it is often the pause, the silence before the word, between the words, after the words, or after the word. It's often that silence, those pauses, which really work and give the poem its deeper meaning, its deeper impact in our own body and our own heart. And so we want to focus today on the note I made for myself: silence speaks volumes. Before and between and after the words, every poem you love will signal where the quiet wants to be, is another way to think about it. And the poem that I've chosen for us today to kind of demonstrate this and other characteristics, of course, as we go along, is a brilliant poem by the Spanish poet Antonio Machado, and it's called "The Wind One Brilliant Day." This particular was originally written in Spanish, and this translation done by Robert Bly, and it goes like this: "The wind one brilliant day. The wind one brilliant day called to my soul with an odor of jasmine. In return for the odor of my jasmine, I'd like all the odor of your roses. But I have no roses. But I have no roses. All the flowers in my garden are dead." "Well, then," said the wind. "Well, then," said the wind, "I'll take the withered petals and the yellow leaves and the waters of the fountain." But the wind left, and I wept, and I said to myself, "What have you done with the garden that was entrusted to you?" Now, again, power of the pause. Of course, there's some very traditional ways that we understand about pauses with the way the poet has written the poem, the way the poem is actually appears on the page. Some of those breaks would be where one stanza ends and another stanza begins. A period, a comma, all those are signals. And of course, a line break within a stanza. But beyond that, I'm going to say that each of us is going to have our own kind of interpretation on not some kind of performance where you're performing, but on just a kind of real basic soulful reading of a poem. And what you're hearing in my own rendition of this poem by Machado is that you're hearing my own sense of where the pauses go, how long they should be, that sort of thing. And again, I don't want to make this some big intellectual thing. All I'm saying is that when you find a poem that you love, okay, there's your first marker. But basically to begin to imagine from your solar plexus, from your sense of how it should be, not some rule, not rules about, well, a period is always, a nanosecond plus that, none of that. That's way too technical. But to begin to know that there are pauses, there is silence in a poem. And so the way we interpret that and the way we speak that poem with those pauses, with those moments of silence, even a short moment of silence, they are powerful. They are carrying the weight and meaning of the poem. So, to read this one more time. By the way, I love this one. Somebody said to read a poem only once is great violence. So we won't do that. The Wind One Brilliant Day by Antonio Machado, Robert Bly, translator. The wind one brilliant day called to my soul with an odor of jasmine. In return for the odor of my jasmine, I'd like all the odor of your roses, of your roses. I have no roses. I have no roses. All the flowers in my garden are dead. Well, then, I'll take the withered petals. Well, then, said the wind, I will take the withered petals and the yellow leaves and the waters of the fountain. But the wind left. But the wind left, and I wept. And I said to myself, what have you done with the garden that was entrusted to you? To you. What have you done? Now, just to speak for a moment about how that poem landed in my own body. And of course, the meaning is going to be how that poem, how those sounds, how those words land in your body. When you step into this poem, what is the experience that you have? And one of the things that I experience that's coming from this poem for me is that we must fully embrace grief. We can't push it away. If we push it away, it will grow even larger. And it's the idea that what we resist persists. And so in this case, I think Antonio Machado has done a brilliant piece that tells us if we're in a grieving space, even the most difficult grieving space, when he says, the wind left and I wept, and I said to myself, what have you done with the garden that was entrusted to you? And if that's the reality, if that's how you're feeling, to state it so then you can own that so that you have some hope of stepping beyond it, I think is very, very important. So, pause for power is what this week's principle or simple method that we can use to have the poem come more fully alive, to have us come more fully alive when we read it. So anyway, stay tuned for next week. We're going to be doing one called Honor the Heart Lines, and that's a very important part of a poem that we will unpack and expand next week. So please come back. And, if you like this, please refer it to others also. And thank you so much, as always, for your listening ear. Until next time and next poem. And as we do this series, please take good care of yourself. And if you can, someone else.